My phone buzzes at 9 p.m. while I'm scrubbing coffee stains from my uniform in the cramped bathroom of my studio apartment, and I almost don't answer because nothing good ever comes from calls this late. But then I see Mrs. Patterson's name flashing on the screen and my stomach drops, because she never calls me directly unless something is very wrong or very urgent. I pick up with shaking hands, still dripping with soapy water, and her voice comes through frantic and breathless in a way I've never heard before. Maya. I'm begging you, she says. And those words alone make my heart race, because Mrs. Patterson doesn't beg anyone for anything. I need you to take an emergency job tonight, and I know it's last minute, and I know you've already worked a double shift at the diner, but this client is extremely important, and the entire regular crew called in sick. And if we don't send someone, he could destroy my business. Do you understand what I'm saying? He could actually destroy everything I've built. I'm standing there in my tiny bathroom with water dripping onto the cracked linoleum floor, and I'm already mentally calculating how much sleep I can get before my breakfast shift at the diner starts at 6 a.m., and the answer is not enough. But then she says the number, $5,000 for one night's work, and I actually have to ask her to repeat it, because that can't be right. That's more than I make in 2 months at all three of my jobs combined. 5,000, she confirms, and her voice has this edge of desperation that makes me understand this isn't just about money for her. This is about survival, in whatever world she operates in. The job is in Blackwood Hills, she continues, and I feel my breath catch, because everyone in this city knows about Blackwood Hills even if we don't talk about it openly. It's where the wealthy live, the powerful, the people connected to families that run things from the shadows, the kind of people who don't appear in newspapers, but whose names everyone whispers. I should say no. Every logical part of my brain is screaming at me to say no. But then I think about the stack of medical bills on my kitchen counter, the debt collectors who call 3 times a day, the money I owe for treatments that didn't save my sister Emma or her son Jacob, the guilt that sits like a stone in my chest because I was driving that night and I walked away, and they didn't. 3 months of debt payments, I think. 3 months where I could breathe without drowning. 3 months where maybe I could sleep through the night without nightmares about collection agencies and eviction notices. I hear myself saying yes before I've consciously made the decision, and Mrs. Patterson exhales like she's been holding her breath. Thank you, Maya. Thank you. I'll send you the address and the NDA. Right now. You need to be there by 10 p.m. And she pauses. This client values discretion above everything, Maya. Sign the NDA, do the job, don't ask questions, don't talk about what you see, and you'll never have to worry about money problems again if you do this right. The NDA comes through on my phone while I'm pulling on my only clean uniform, and my hands are shaking so badly I can barely hold the phone steady to read it. The language is dense and legal, and full of words like confidentiality and severe penalties and legal action. But the core message is clear enough. I was never there, I saw nothing, I know nothing, and if I violate this agreement, the consequences will be more than just financial. I sign it with my finger on the screen and feel like I've just signed something far more binding than a simple work contract. But it's too late now. The address is already pulling up on my GPS, and I'm grabbing my cleaning supplies and heading out into the night. The drive to Blackwood Hills takes 40 minutes through increasingly wealthy neighborhoods, where the houses get bigger and the streets get quieter, and the security cameras get more obvious, until I'm finally pulling up to an address that makes my GPS seem confused because there's nothing here but a massive iron gate set into a stone wall that disappears into dense woods on either side. I pull up to the intercom and press the button with a finger that won't stop trembling, and a male voice answers immediately like he's been waiting. Name and identification, he says with no greeting, and I stammer out my name and hold my driver's license up to the camera that I now notice is pointed directly at my car window. There's a long pause, and I can almost feel myself being evaluated by people I can't see, and then the voice says wait, and the silence stretches for what feels like hours, but is probably only minutes. The gate finally swings open with a heavy mechanical sound, and I drive through onto a private road that winds through manicured grounds lit by subtle pathway lights that probably cost more than my car. I pass what looks like a guardhouse with two men visible through the windows, both wearing suits and earpieces, and my heart is pounding so hard I can hear it over the sound of my engine. The mansion appears gradually as I round a curve, and it's stunning in a way that doesn't feel real. All white stone and huge windows and classical architecture that belongs in a movie, not in a place where someone like me would ever have access. I park where another man in a suit indicates, and he checks my ID again, scrutinizing my face against the photo for longer than seems necessary before nodding and stepping back. Another man opens my door like I'm someone important instead of a cleaning lady making emergency money, and his face is professionally blank as he escorts me to the front entrance where the doors are already open and light spills out onto the stone steps. The woman waiting inside is tall and thin, and probably in her 60s, with steel gray hair pulled back so tightly it seems to stretch her face and eyes that remind me of a hawk watching prey. "Miss Carson," she says, and it's not a question. "I'm Victoria, the head of household staff, and I'll be briefing you on tonight's requirements." She doesn't offer to shake my hand or smile or make any gesture of welcome, and I follow her into the entrance hall feeling like I've stepped into a museum after closing hours. The floors are white marble veined with gold. The walls are covered in what looks like original art. There's a grand staircase that curves up to the second floor, and a massive chandelier hanging overhead that catches the light and throws prismatic patterns across every surface. It's beautiful and cold and empty feeling despite its size, like a show house where no one actually lives. Victoria walks me through the ground floor, pointing out rooms with sharp, efficient gestures. "You'll clean the entrance hall, the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, and the study," she says. "Do not go upstairs. Do not enter Mr. Rossi's private office on the second floor. Do not touch anything that appears personal or valuable beyond what's necessary for cleaning. Finish by 6 a.m. She stops and turns to face me, and her eyes are intense in a way that makes me want to step back. "Mr. Rossi values discretion above all else, Miss Carson. You understand what discretion means, don't you?" I nod because I'm not sure my voice will work properly. "It means you were never here," she continues. "You saw nothing, you know nothing. You will not speak about this house or its occupants, or anything you observed tonight to anyone for any reason. The NDA you signed isn't just a formality. It's a promise, and Mr. Rossi takes promises very seriously." There's something in the way she says his name that makes me understand I should be afraid of him, whoever he is, and I am afraid, but I'm also thinking about $5,000 and 3 months of breathing room. Victoria's eyes linger on my face for another long moment, and it feels like she's memorizing every feature, like she's taking a photograph with her mind, and I resist the urge to look away or fidget under that penetrating stare. She finally nods once as if I've passed some test I didn't know I was taking, and then she's walking toward the front door. "The cleaning supplies are in the kitchen utility closet," she says over her shoulder. "There's a security code for the alarm system if you need to step outside, but I suggest you don't. The guards patrol the grounds, and they're instructed to be cautious with unauthorized movement." Then she's gone, and I hear her car starting outside and pulling away, and I'm completely alone in this massive house that's too quiet and too perfect and too much like a trap I've willingly walked into. I stand in the entrance hall for a full minute, just trying to calm my racing heart, and then I pull out my phone and take a picture of the exterior through the window, because some part of me wants evidence that this place is real. But as soon as I do it, I feel paranoid and stupid, and I delete it immediately, thinking about Victoria's warnings and the NDA and the cameras I can now see mounted in every corner with their little red lights blinking like watching eyes. I find the cleaning supplies in the kitchen, which is enormous and professional grade with appliances that look like they belong in a restaurant, and counters so clean they barely look used. And I start with the entrance hall, because at least that gives me something to focus on besides my anxiety. The house is lit, but feels empty, like a stage set waiting for actors. And as I work, I can see through the massive windows to the grounds outside, where men in dark suits patrol with earpieces and something that might be weapons, though I can't see clearly enough to be sure. Rain starts to fall, pattering against the windows, and somehow that makes everything feel more isolated, like I'm trapped in a beautiful prison miles from anyone who could help if something went wrong. I move through the rooms, mechanically polishing surfaces that are already clean and trying not to think about what kind of man needs this level of security or why his housekeeper spoke about discretion like it was a matter of life and death. The living room has a grand piano that looks antique and probably costs more than I'll make in my entire life, and bookshelves full of leather-bound volumes with titles in Italian that I can't read, and abstract paintings on the walls that are probably worth fortunes. Everything is expensive and beautiful and soulless, like it was decorated by someone with unlimited money, but no actual interest in creating a home. I'm dusting the dining room table, which could easily seat 20 people, when I finally let myself admit what I've been avoiding thinking about all night. I'm in the house of someone dangerous, someone connected to whatever shadowy business runs Blackwood Hills, someone powerful enough to make Mrs. Patterson sound genuinely afraid, and I've signed away my right to talk about anything I see here. $5,000 suddenly doesn't seem like nearly enough money for whatever risk I've actually taken, and my hands start shaking again as I work. But I keep cleaning because what else can I do? I'm here now, and the debt won't pay itself, and Emma's medical bills won't disappear, and the guilt I carry won't ease just because I'm afraid. So I clean and try not to think about the cameras watching me, or the guards outside, or the man named Mr. Rossi, who values discretion so much that his housekeeper makes it sound like a threat. And I tell myself that in 8 hours this will be over, and I'll have enough money to breathe for 3 months, and maybe that's worth one night of fear in a beautiful house that feels like a very expensive cage. Around midnight, I'm on my hands and knees polishing the marble floor in the grand foyer, trying to work out a scuff mark that probably costs more to fix than my monthly rent. When I hear it, small footsteps padding softly on the stairs above me, and I freeze completely, because Victoria said no one would be home, and the house has been silent as a tomb for the past 2 hours, except for the sound of my own breathing and the occasional creak of old wood settling. I look up slowly, almost afraid of what I'll see. And there on the landing halfway up the grand staircase sits a little boy who can't be more than 4 years old, watching me with enormous dark eyes that seem too sad for someone so small. He's wearing pajamas covered in rocket ships that look expensive but are clearly too small for him, the sleeves ending well above his wrists, and the pants riding up to show skinny ankles. And he's clutching a stuffed wolf that's seen better days, worn and loved until the fur is matted and one ear is hanging by threads. We stare at each other for a long moment, and my heart is pounding because I don't know what to do. I wasn't told there would be a child here, and everything Victoria said was about not disturbing Mr. Rossi, but nothing about a little boy who's apparently awake and alone at midnight. "Are you my new mommy?" he asks in a small voice that absolutely shatters something inside my chest, and I have to swallow hard against the sudden tightness in my throat. I set down my cleaning cloth and move closer to the stairs, but not too close because I don't want to scare him. "I'm not your mommy, sweetie," I say as gently as I can manage. "I'm just the cleaning lady. I'm here to help make the house nice." His face falls in a way that makes him look even smaller and more lost. "Oh," he says, and his voice is so matter-of-fact about his disappointment that it hurts worse than if he'd cried. "My last mommy left yesterday and she didn't say goodbye. Victoria says she got tired of me being difficult." I climb a few steps so I'm closer to his level, and I can see him better in the dim light from the chandelier. "What's your name?" I ask. "Luca," he says. "Luca Rossi. And I'm 4 years old, and my real mommy went to heaven when I was a baby." The way he recites these facts like he's learned them by rote makes my chest ache, and I think about Jacob, who would have been 6 now if he'd lived. who used to climb into my lap and play with my hair and ask me endless questions about everything. I should call someone. I should find a phone number for Mr. Rossi or Victoria or someone responsible for this child. But Luca looks so desperately lonely sitting there on the stairs in his two small pajamas, hugging his threadbare wolf, and I can't bring myself to walk away. Are you hungry? I ask instead, even though I know I'm breaking rules and crossing boundaries that Victoria made very clear. Do you want some warm milk or something to eat? His whole face lights up like I've offered him the moon. Yes, please, he says, and he's already scrambling down the stairs toward me, moving with the fearless speed of a 4-year-old who hasn't learned to be careful yet. He takes my hand without hesitation like he's known me forever, and his small fingers curl around mine with complete trust that makes me want to cry because this child is so starved for affection that he'll take it from a stranger who showed up to clean his house. We walk to the kitchen together, and I'm acutely aware that there are cameras everywhere watching this, and I'm supposed to be cleaning, not making warm milk for a child. I wasn't told existed, but I can't seem to care about the rules right now when Luca is swinging my hand and chattering nonstop, like he's been saving up words for hours, or maybe days. Do you like wolves, he asks. I love wolves, they're my favorite, and this is Wolfgang. My mommy gave him to me before she went to heaven. At least that's what Papa says, but I don't really remember. Do you have any kids? Victoria says. I'm too loud, and that's why my last mommy left. But I try to be quiet, I really do, but sometimes I forget. Do you think I'm bad? The question comes out so casually mixed in with his chatter that it takes me a second to process what he actually asked, and when I do, I have to stop walking and kneel down so I'm at his eye level. No, sweetie, I say firmly, looking him right in those huge dark eyes. You're not bad, you're 4 years old, and 4-year-olds are supposed to be loud and energetic and full of questions. That's what makes you perfect. He stares at me for a long moment, like he's trying to decide if I'm lying, and then he reaches out and touches my hair tentatively, like he's checking if I'm real. You're nice, he says. I hope you don't leave. The kitchen is warmer than the rest of the house somehow, maybe because it's smaller and more enclosed, or maybe just because there's another person here now, making it feel less like a museum. And I heat milk on the enormous professional stove while Luca sits at the counter swinging his legs and talking nonstop. He tells me about his day, which apparently involved a lot of being alone in his room because Victoria was busy, and the guards aren't allowed to play with him, and Papa is always working and never has time. He tells me about the drawing he made today, and runs off to get it from somewhere, returning with a piece of paper that he spreads proudly on the counter. It's a child's drawing, all simple stick figures, but the message is painfully clear. A large stick figure man standing on one side of the page and a tiny stick figure boy on the other side with a huge empty space between them. This is me and Papa, he says, pointing. He's always far away like this because he has important work and he can't be bothered with kid stuff. I stare at this drawing and feel anger rising in my chest. Anger at this Mr. Rossi, who I've never met but who apparently has a beautiful lonely child that he can't be bothered to spend time with. Anger at Victoria, who tells a 4-year-old he's too loud. Anger at a world where money can buy a mansion and security and expensive pajamas, but can't seem to buy basic human warmth. I'm sure your father loves you very much, I say, even though I'm not sure of anything. Sometimes grown-ups show love in ways that are hard to understand. Luca considers this, while he drinks his warm milk, leaving a white mustache on his upper lip that makes him look even younger. Papa doesn't like to talk about Mommy, he says. He gets the scary face when I ask about her. Victoria says, I'm the reason Papa is always sad because I look too much like Mommy, and it makes him remember bad things. My hands clench around my own mug of milk, and I have to breathe deeply to keep my voice steady. That's not your fault, I say. None of that is your fault, sweetie. You understand that, right? He shrugs in that way kids do when they've heard something so many times they've started to believe it, even if they don't want to. I notice bruises on his knees when he climbs down from the stool, normal kid bruises from playing and falling, but I also notice his pajamas really are too small, like no one's bothered to buy him new ones in months, and when I glance at the refrigerator, looking for something to give him with his milk, I see it's full of expensive food, but nothing child-friendly, no juice boxes or yogurt pouches, or the simple things a 4-year-old would want. This child is being emotionally neglected in a house with 50 rooms and probably 100 people working for his father, and the realization makes me feel sick, because money doesn't fix everything. Money doesn't fix anything when what you need is someone to notice you exist and care that you're lonely. Luca talks for almost an hour, and I let him because he clearly needs it. He's like a dam that's finally burst after holding back too long, and he tells me about his stuffed wolf and his favorite color, which is blue, and how he wishes he had a brother or sister so he wouldn't be alone, and how sometimes he hears Papa crying at night through the walls. That last one breaks my heart completely because I imagine this little boy lying awake listening to his father's grief and probably thinking it's his fault, because that's what Victoria has told him, and that's what the distance between them suggests. I think about Jacob constantly while Luca talks. Jacob, who had the same dark curly hair and the same way of tilting his head when he asked questions. Jacob, who died holding his mother's hand in a car I was driving on a night I can never take back. The grief hits me sudden and sharp like it always does, and I have to blink back tears while Luca chatters on, oblivious to my pain, which is good, because this isn't about me, this is about him. When I finally tell him it's time to go back to bed, he looks so devastated that I almost take it back. "Please don't make me go back," he says. "It's dark up there, and Wolfgang doesn't talk back when I talk to him, and I get scared when I'm alone. Can't I stay with you? I'll be really quiet. I promise I won't bother you while you clean." I should say no, I should absolutely say no because this isn't my child and I'm already crossing so many lines, but when I open my mouth what comes out is, "Okay, you can stay with me for a little while longer." His smile is like the sun coming out, and he throws his arms around my waist, hugging me with the fierce, desperate strength of a child who hasn't been hugged enough. We go back to the foyer, and I try to work while he sits on the bottom step of the staircase, talking to me and showing me how Wolfgang can do tricks, which mostly involves making the stuffed wolf hop around. I learn more about his life in that hour than I probably should. I learn that his mother died when he was born, and that he's never known her except through photographs that Papa keeps in his office. I learn that he's had 7 nannies in 4 years because they all leave eventually saying he's too difficult or too demanding or too something. I learn that Victoria has been with the family forever and that she loved Luca's mother and seems to resent Luca for existing without her. I learn that Papa comes home late and leaves early, and sometimes doesn't come home at all, and that when he is home, he looks at Luca with an expression the boy describes as sad scary, like he's sad and angry at the same time. I learn that Luca desperately wants his father's attention, and acts out sometimes to get it, breaking things or making noise or refusing to eat. Anything to make Papa notice him, even if the notice comes in the form of anger, because anger is at least acknowledgement that he exists. By the time it's close to 2 a.m., I know I should really put him to bed, but when I suggest it again, he grabs my hand so tightly his little fingers dig into my palm. "Please don't leave me alone," he says, and his voice cracks. Everyone leaves. My mommy left, and all my other mommies left, and Papa is always leaving, and I hate being alone in the dark. His eyes are filling with tears, and he's trying so hard not to cry that it makes my own eyes sting. "I won't leave you alone tonight," I hear myself promise. "How about you sleep here on the couch, where I can see you while I work?" The relief on his face is painful to witness, and he practically runs to the living room couch, curling up in a small ball, still clutching Wolfgang. I find a throw blanket folded perfectly on a chair and tuck it around him, and he looks up at me with those enormous dark eyes. "Will you still be here when I wake up?" he asks. "I'll be here, I promise, even though I have no idea if that's true, even though my shift ends at 6 a.m., and Victoria will probably be back, and I'll probably never see this child again." He reaches out and touches my face gently like he did with my hair earlier. "You're really nice," he whispers. "I wish you were my real mommy. You smell like cookies, and you listen when I talk." Then his eyes drift closed, and within minutes he's asleep, breathing softly, with one hand curled around Wolfgang, and the other stretched toward where I'm sitting on the floor beside the couch. I watch him sleep for longer than I should, and think about all the ways this house is wrong. All the money spent on marble and chandeliers and art, while this child sleeps in two small pajamas and begs strangers not to leave him alone. I think about Mr. Rossi, who I still haven't seen and already hate a little for having this beautiful, lonely boy and not appreciating what a gift that is. I think about my sister Emma and nephew Jacob and how I would give anything for one more day with them, how I would trade every dollar I'll ever make for 5 more minutes of Jacob's hand in mine. And here is a man who has his child alive and healthy, and he can't even be bothered to come home at a reasonable hour or buy the kid pajamas that fit. I take off my jacket and lay it over Luca, like an extra blanket, and I sit there on the floor beside the couch, watching his small chest rise and fall, and feeling something crack open in my heart that's been locked up tight since the accident. I wasn't supposed to feel anything tonight. I was supposed to clean and leave and take my money and forget this place existed. But now there's this child with his sad eyes and his desperate need for someone to care, and I know with absolute certainty that I'm in trouble because I already care too much, and caring has only ever brought me pain. But I can't seem to stop myself from caring anyway. I'm sitting on the floor beside the couch watching Luca sleep when I hear it. The heavy sound of the front door opening and then footsteps, multiple sets of footsteps, and men's voices speaking rapid Italian in low tones that carry through the cavernous house. My heart immediately starts racing because I know without being told that this is Mr. Rossi. This is the man who owns this mansion and employs these guards and values discretion above all else. And I'm sitting here having completely failed at my job with his son, asleep on the couch covered by my cheap jacket, instead of in his bed where he's supposed to be. I scramble to my feet trying to look professional and composed, even though my knees are shaking and my mind is racing through possible explanations that don't make me sound like I've completely overstepped every boundary Victoria set. The footsteps get closer, and I can hear that Italian conversation continuing, something about a shipment and a problem that's been handled, and numbers that mean nothing to me. And then suddenly there's a man standing in the doorway of the living room, and my breath catches in my throat because he's not at all what I expected. He's young, maybe 32 at most, and devastatingly handsome in a way that seems almost unfair, like someone took every attractive feature possible and assembled them into one face. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, dark hair that's slightly disheveled like he's been running his hands through it, and eyes that are this pale gray color that seems to look right through me like he can see every thought I've ever had. He's wearing a three-piece suit that probably costs more than my car, and despite the late hour he looks perfectly put together. Except for one detail that makes my stomach drop. His knuckles are bleeding and bruised, and he's wiping them with a white handkerchief that's already stained red. We stare at each other for what feels like an eternity, and I can't read his expression at all. His face is like a mask, beautiful and cold and completely unreadable. And then his eyes drop to the couch where Luca is sleeping, and I see something flicker across his features so fast I almost miss it. Pain, maybe, or guilt, or something else I can't name, but it's gone in an instant, replaced by that cold mask, and when he looks back at me, his eyes are like ice. "Who the hell are you?" His voice is low and dangerous with an Italian accent that makes every word sound like a threat, and I realize I'm in serious trouble here, but I force myself to speak anyway. "I'm Maya Carson," I say, and I hate that my voice shakes slightly. "I'm from the emergency cleaning service. Mrs. Patterson sent me. Victoria let me in and briefed me on the work. I'm sorry I haven't finished yet. I got distracted when your son came downstairs, and he was alone and upset, and I couldn't just—" I trail off because his jaw is getting tighter with every word I speak, and I can see two other men behind him in the doorway. Clearly bodyguards with their suits and earpieces, and hands that rest too casually near their jackets where I assume they have weapons. "My son should be in bed," Dominic says, and each word is clipped and precise like he's holding back anger. "Why is he sleeping on the couch at 2 in the morning, and why are you sitting here watching him instead of doing the job you were hired to do?" I take a breath and try to organize my thoughts, even though my brain is screaming at me to apologize and back down and get out of here before something bad happens. "He was lonely," I hear myself say before I can stop the words. "He came downstairs around midnight, and he was alone and scared. And he asked me if I was his new mommy, because apparently his last nanny left yesterday without saying goodbye, and he's been by himself all day except for Victoria, who he says doesn't like him." The temperature in the room seems to drop about 20 degrees, and Dominic's eyes narrow in a way that makes me acutely aware that this man is dangerous. That the blood on his knuckles came from somewhere, and that he's clearly someone who's used to being obeyed without question. "You're here to clean, not to parent my child." His words are ice, and I should absolutely shut up now. But I'm exhausted and angry and thinking about Luca's sad eyes and his two small pajamas and that drawing of him standing far away from his father. "Maybe your child wouldn't be so lonely if someone actually parented him." The words are out of my mouth before I can stop them, and the moment they hang in the air, I know I've made a catastrophic mistake. The two bodyguards immediately tense, and one of them actually moves his hand toward his jacket, and I can see death in that movement. I can see how easily I could disappear tonight, and no one would ever know what happened to me, because I signed an NDA and told no one where I was going, and this man clearly has the power and resources to make problems vanish. Dominic stares at me with an expression that I imagine has made grown men beg for mercy. His eyes are cold and assessing, and I can practically see him deciding what to do with me. And the silence stretches so long that my heart is pounding so hard, I'm sure everyone in the room can hear it. Then impossibly the corner of his mouth quirks up just the tiniest fraction, like he's almost amused. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid," he says. And his voice is still dangerous, but there's something else in it now. Curiosity, maybe. Probably both, I admit, and I'm proud that my voice is shaking but still steady. "But that little boy has been alone all day, and he asked me if I was his new mommy, because apparently everyone he attaches to leaves him, and I couldn't just ignore that. I have a nephew who—" I stop because my throat is closing up, and I don't want to cry in front of this terrifying man, but thinking about Jacob always does this to me. Dominic's eyes narrow slightly, and I think I see something shift in his expression, but I can't be sure. "You have 30 seconds to explain why you're not cleaning, and why my son is sleeping on the couch before I have my men escort you out," he says. But he's moved further into the room now, and I notice his hands clench when he looks at Luca sleeping peacefully, with Wolfgang clutched to his chest. "I found him on the stairs at midnight," I say quickly. "He was alone, and couldn't sleep, and he told me about his day, which was apparently spent entirely by himself, because everyone was too busy for him. He showed me a drawing he made of you and him, standing far apart from each other, and he said, 'That's how it always is.' I made him warm milk and talked to him because he was starving for attention, and when I tried to put him to bed, he begged me not to leave him alone, because everyone leaves and he's scared of the dark." Dominic's jaw tightens with each thing I say, and I can see I'm getting to him somehow, even though his face remains mostly impassive. "He asked me not to leave him alone," I continue. "He said everyone leaves. He said his last mommy left yesterday, and didn't say goodbye. And before that, there were other mommies who all left, and you're always working, and Victoria doesn't like him. I couldn't. I have a nephew who—" I stop again because I really am going to cry if I keep talking about Jacob. "You know nothing about my son or my family," Dominic says quietly, and there's something dangerous in that quiet tone. "This is your only warning. Stay in your lane." "My lane," I say, and I can hear the anger creeping into my voice now, overriding my fear. My lane is caring about kids who are hurting. Someone should. The words hang in the air like a challenge, and I watch Dominic's face carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. One of the bodyguards shifts and says quietly, "Boss, should I remove her?" Dominic doesn't answer right away. He's moved closer to the couch now, and he's looking down at Luca with an expression I can't read. And I notice his hands are clenched into fists at his sides like he's holding himself back from something. He reaches down and picks up my jacket that's covering his son and studies it for a moment. This cheap, worn jacket that I've had for 5 years that's fraying at the cuffs. And when he looks back at me, there's something different in his eyes. "No," he says to the bodyguard after what feels like an hour. "Let her finish her work." The two men exchange glances, but they don't argue. They just nod and step back into the hallway, leaving me alone with Dominic and his sleeping son. The rain is pounding harder against the windows now, and the living room is lit only by one small lamp, creating these intimate shadows that make everything feel more intense. Dominic is still holding my jacket and staring at Luca, and I can see his throat working like he's trying to swallow something down. "He looks so peaceful," Dominic says so quietly, I almost don't hear him. "He hasn't slept this well in weeks. He has nightmares, and he wakes up crying, and I don't know what to do, so I just—" He stops, and his hands clench tighter around my jacket. "I don't know what to do," he repeats, and there's something broken in his voice now. "There's blood on your knuckles," I say, before I can stop myself and immediately regret it because his eyes snap to mine and they're cold again. "That's none of your concern," he says. "I'm aware," I say quietly. "Just like your son's loneliness is apparently none of my concern, but here we are." He studies me for a long moment, and I force myself not to look away, even though every instinct is screaming at me to run. "You don't fear me," he says, and it's not quite a question. "I'm terrified of you," I admit, but I'm more angry than scared right now, and exhaustion makes me stupid apparently. He makes a sound that might be a laugh if it came from anyone else, but from him, it's just a huff of air. "My wife died when he was born," Dominic says suddenly, and I wasn't expecting that. Wasn't expecting him to share anything personal. Luca lived and Isabella didn't, and I look at him and I see her, and I see what I lost, and I know that's not his fault. I know logically it's not his fault, but I can't. His voice breaks slightly. I can't separate the two things in my head. I stare at him and see him differently now. Not just a cold, dangerous man, but a devastated widower who lost his soulmate and doesn't know how to love the reminder of what he lost. "My sister died in a car accident with her 5-year-old son," I hear myself say. "I was driving. We got hit by a drunk driver running a red light. They died and I lived, and the guilt is I stop because I can't finish that sentence." "Survivor's guilt," Dominic says quietly. "Yes," I whisper. "So I understand what it's like to look at something and see only what you lost instead of what you still have." He's quiet for a long moment, still staring at Luca. He asked, "If you were his new mommy," he says finally. "Yes," I say. "And you said no." "Obviously I'm the cleaning lady." He looks at me, then really looks at me with those intense gray eyes. "Are you?" he asks. Am I what I say confused? "Just the cleaning lady," he clarifies. "Because you're sitting on my floor at 2 in the morning watching my son sleep, like you're guarding him, and you just told me off in my own house, knowing full well I could make you disappear without a trace. So I'm wondering if you're really just here to clean, or if you're something else entirely." I don't know how to answer that, so I don't say anything, and we just stand there in this weird, tense silence, with Luca sleeping peacefully between us, and the rain pounding outside, and something crackling in the air that I don't want to name. Boss, one of the guards calls from the hallway. "We need to discuss the situation." Dominic doesn't take his eyes off me. "One moment, Marco," he calls back. Then to me, "Stay, finish your work. We'll discuss this further in the morning." He moves toward the door, then stops and looks back. "Thank you," he says quietly, "for what I ask. For seeing him when I couldn't," he says. "For caring when everyone else just walks away." Then he's gone, and I'm alone again with Luca and my racing heart, and the feeling that something monumental just shifted in my life, though I have no idea what it is yet. I watch as Dominic bends down and carefully gathers Luca into his arms, and there's something achingly tender about the way he does it, despite the coldness I saw earlier. The way he cradles his son's head against his shoulder and adjusts Wolfgang so the stuffed animal doesn't fall. The way his entire body softens when Luca instinctively curls into him, still fast asleep. This man does love his son, I realize. He just doesn't know how to show it. Or maybe he's afraid to show it because love makes you vulnerable, and vulnerable means you can be hurt again. Dominic carries Luca toward the stairs, and I stand there awkwardly, not sure if I'm dismissed, or supposed to wait, or what exactly is happening now. But then he pauses at the doorway and looks back at me. "Don't leave," he says quietly. "Wait in the study, down the hall to the left. I'll be back in a few minutes." Then he's gone up the stairs, moving carefully so he doesn't wake his son, and I'm left standing in the living room feeling like I've stepped into some alternate reality where nothing makes sense anymore. I find the study easily enough, and it's exactly what I'd expect from a man like Dominic Rossi. All dark wood and leather furniture and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with volumes in Italian and English, business books and classic literature, and what looks like poetry, though I can't read the spines from where I'm standing. There's a massive desk made of some dark wood that probably cost more than I make in a year, and the walls are covered in tasteful art, and there's one photograph in a silver frame on the desk, and even from across the room, I can see it's a woman, dark-haired and beautiful with a bright smile that seems to light up the whole frame. Isabella, I think, and feel a strange pang in my chest looking at her. She was stunning and young and clearly deeply loved, and now she's gone, and her son is downstairs sleeping, and her husband is broken. I hear footsteps, and Dominic enters the study, closing the door behind him, and for a moment, we just look at each other in this space that feels too intimate, too private, and I'm acutely aware that I'm alone with a dangerous man in his personal space at almost 3 in the morning. He moves to a cabinet and pulls out a crystal decanter filled with amber liquid and pours 2 glasses without asking if I want any. "Sit," he says, and it's a command, not a request, but his voice is tired rather than threatening. I sit in one of the leather chairs because what else am I going to do? And he hands me a glass before sitting in the chair facing mine, close enough that our knees almost touch. The whiskey burns going down, and I'm not much of a drinker, but I sip it anyway because my hands need something to do, and the warmth helps calm my nerves slightly. We sit in silence for a long moment, and I can hear birds starting to sing outside, which means dawn is approaching, which means my shift is almost over, which means this strange night is coming to an end. "Tell me about your nephew," Dominic says suddenly, and I wasn't expecting that. Wasn't expecting him to ask about Jacob. "His name was Jacob," I say, and my voice cracks slightly. "He was 5 years old, dark curly hair like Luca, always asking questions about everything. His favorite thing was building block towers as tall as he could and then knocking them down and laughing. My sister Emma was a single mom. The father left when she found out she was pregnant, and I helped raise Jacob from when he was a baby. I was at the hospital when he was born. I was there for his first steps and first words, and I loved him like he was my own." I stop and take another sip of whiskey because this is the part I never talk about, the part that wakes me up at 3 a.m. most nights. "I was driving," I continue. "We were going to get ice cream. It was a Saturday afternoon and sunny and perfect, and we were singing along to the radio and laughing, and then there was this truck that ran a red light going at least 60, and I saw it coming, but there wasn't time to do anything, and it hit us on the passenger side where Emma and Jacob were sitting, and the sound was, I stop because I can hear it even now, the sound of metal crushing and glass shattering and Emma screaming Jacob's name. I walked away with a broken arm and some bruises, I say, and tears are running down my face now, but I can't seem to stop talking. They died at the scene, both of them, and I spent 3 months in the hospital anyway because I kept trying to die too. I stopped eating and stopped sleeping and just wanted it to be over, but my body wouldn't cooperate. Then the medical bills started coming, and the funeral costs, and the debt collectors, and I realized I couldn't even die properly because I owed too much money and someone had to pay it back. I look up at Dominic and his face is unreadable, but his eyes are intense and focused completely on me. "That's why you're working 3 jobs," he says quietly. "That's why you took a cleaning job at midnight for $5,000, even though you knew it was dangerous." "Yes," I whisper. "I owe over $200,000 for medical treatments that didn't save them, for Emma's emergency surgery that didn't work, for Jacob's life flight helicopter that got him to the hospital already gone. The insurance covered some but not enough, and I'm drowning, and I can't breathe, and every day I wake up and wish I hadn't, but I keep going because what else is there to do?" Dominic leans forward and I think he's going to touch me, comfort me somehow, but then he stops himself and sits back and I see the conflict in his face. "Everyone tells me time heals," he says after a moment. "It's been 4 years since Isabella died, 4 years since I held her hand while she was in labor and felt her grip get weaker and watched the doctors try everything and fail. 4 years and I still see her in his eyes every day. I see her smile and her laugh and the way she used to tilt her head when she was thinking, and it's like losing her again and again every single time I look at him." His voice is rough with emotion and his hands are clenched on the arms of his chair. "I was supposed to be there," he continues. "She went into labor early while I was handling business in the city. They called me, and I drove like a maniac trying to get to the hospital, but there was traffic and an accident, and by the time I got there, she was already fading. She held Luca for maybe 2 minutes before she started hemorrhaging, and then she was gone, and I was holding our son and wanting to throw him through a wall because he was alive and breathing, and she wasn't." The honesty of that statement, the raw ugliness of it, makes me flinch, but I understand it too. "Luca didn't take your wife from you," I say softly. "The universe did, biology did, bad luck did, but not him. He's not the enemy. He's the victim just like you are, but he's 4 years old and he thinks his father hates him because that's what the distance tells him, and that's what Victoria apparently says to him when you're not around." Dominic's eyes snap to mine. "What did you say about Victoria?" he asks sharply. "Luca told me she says he's the reason you're always sad," I say. "She tells him he looks too much like his mother and it makes you remember bad things. She's been with your family for decades and she loved Isabella, and she resents Luca for existing without her." I watch his face darken with anger, and I realize he didn't know this, didn't know his trusted housekeeper was poisoning his son against himself. "I don't hate him," Dominic says, and his voice breaks slightly. "I hate myself. I hate that I wasn't there when Isabella needed me. I hate that I couldn't save her. I hate that I survived and she didn't, and now I'm supposed to raise this child alone, and I don't know how because every time I look at him, I see what I lost instead of what I have. Survivor's guilt," I say. "I know it intimately. I was driving when the truck ran the red light. I chose that route and that time, and if I'd made different choices, Emma and Jacob would still be alive, and I'd still have a family, and I wouldn't be drowning in debt and grief. But you know what I learned, what my therapist tried to get me to understand before I stopped going because I couldn't afford the sessions anymore. The dead don't want us to stop living. They want us to live enough for both of us. They want us to love and be happy and make the most of the time we have because they can't anymore." I lean forward in my chair. "Luca is here," I say, and my voice is fierce now. "He's alive and healthy, and he loves you desperately, even though you've been distant and cold because children love their parents unconditionally until that love is beaten out of them. You still have a chance to fix this, to love him and be present and give him the father he needs. I would give anything, everything for one more day with Jacob, one more hour, one more minute to tell him I love him and I'm sorry, and it should have been me instead. But I can't have that, and you still can. You still have your son, and he still wants your love, so for God's sake, give it to him before it's too late. The silence that follows is heavy and thick, and I can hear Dominic's breathing, can see the war happening behind his eyes as he processes what I've said. No one has spoken to me like this, he says finally. Everyone fears me, everyone agrees with me, everyone tells me what they think I want to hear because I sign their paychecks, or because they're afraid of what I'll do if they cross me. You walked into my house tonight to clean, and instead you've torn me apart with the truth, and you're not even afraid to cry in front of me. I'm terrified of you, I admit. But I'm more sad than scared right now, and sadness makes me honest, apparently. He studies me for a long moment, and I study him back. This devastatingly handsome man, with blood still on his knuckles and grief carved into every line of his face and eyes that have seen things I probably don't want to know about. The photograph of Isabella watches us from the desk, and I notice that I look nothing like her. She was petite and dark and Italian-looking, while I'm taller and lighter with different features entirely. And somehow that feels important, though I'm not sure why. Dawn is breaking outside now, soft gray light filtering through the windows and birds singing their morning songs, and the house feels different in this liminal space between night and day, like truth can be spoken here that couldn't be spoken in full darkness or full light. Stay, Dominic says suddenly, and the word hangs in the air between us. What I say, because I must have misheard. Stay, he repeats. Not as a cleaner, as Luca's nanny, he responded to you in one night more than he has to anyone in months. And he needs you, Maya. He needs someone who sees him as a child rather than a burden, or a reminder, or a problem to be managed. I stare at him like he's lost his mind. I can't, I say. I don't know anything about your world, about your business. I signed an NDA that made it clear you're involved in things that aren't exactly legal, and I can't just walk into that life. You don't need to know anything about my business, Dominic says, and he's leaning forward now, intense and focused. You just need to know how to care for my son, and you already do that naturally. You already gave him more love and attention in a few hours than he's gotten in months. I'll pay you whatever you want. Name your price and I'll double it. I'll clear your debts and set you up in the guest house and provide security and anything else you need. This is insane, I say. You don't even know me. I'm a stranger who walked into your house 8 hours ago, and now you're offering me a job, taking care of your child, who is the most important thing in your world. Exactly, Dominic says. You're a stranger, and you cared about him anyway. You didn't care about impressing me or keeping your job or following Victoria's rules. You just cared about a lonely 4-year-old who needed someone, and that's exactly what he needs. The nannies I've hired are all professionals with credentials and references, and they all quit because Luca is difficult, because he acts out and throws tantrums and refuses to eat and breaks things trying to get attention. But he's not difficult. He's desperate. And you saw that immediately. I think about Luca's small hand in mine, his question about whether I was his new mommy, his drawing of him and his father standing far apart, his desperate plea for me not to leave him alone. I think about my empty apartment and my 3 jobs and my crushing debt and the way I wake up every morning wishing I hadn't. I think about Jacob, who I'll never see again, and this child who reminds me so much of him and needs someone so badly. I'm not a good man, Maya, Dominic says quietly. My business isn't legal. I've done things that would horrify you. My world is dangerous and violent, and people want to hurt me by hurting the people I care about. But I can protect you. I have resources and security and power that most people can't even imagine. And all I'm asking is that you give my son what I can't. He pauses, and I see desperation in his eyes now breaking through that cold mask. Give him warmth and attention and love. Help me fix what I've broken. Help me be a better father because God knows I can't figure it out on my own. The offer hangs between us, dangerous and tempting and wrong in so many ways, but also somehow right. Yes, I hear myself say, before I've fully thought it through. Yes, I'll stay. I'll be his nanny. I'll help you fix this. But I have conditions. I need my debts cleared, not just paid down. I need protection, like you said, because I'm not stupid enough to think this won't make me a target. And I need you to promise you'll actually try with him, that you'll be present and engaged and work on being the father he needs. Done, Dominic says immediately. All of it, done. I'll have the paperwork drawn up today, and your debts cleared by the end of the week. He stands and extends his hand, and I stand too, and shake it, and his grip is firm and warm, and somehow reassuring despite everything. Welcome to the family, Maya Carson, he says, and there's something in his voice that makes those words sound like more than just a job offer, like I've just agreed to something bigger and more complicated than either of us fully understands yet. The sun is rising now, full morning light streaming through the windows, and I realize I've just made a decision that will change everything. For better or worse, I don't know. But I've committed now, and there's no going back. The first 2 weeks after I accept Dominic's offer pass in a blur of change and transformation that feels almost surreal. Like I've stepped into someone else's life and am just playing a role that will end when the real person comes back. Dominic offers me one of the guest rooms on the second floor, a beautiful space with its own bathroom and a view of the gardens. But I refuse because accepting that feels like crossing a line I'm not ready to cross. Like admitting I'm part of the family rather than an employee. So I take a room in the staff wing instead. Smaller and simpler, but still nicer than my entire apartment was. And I tell myself this is about maintaining boundaries and professionalism, even though I know deep down it's about fear. About not letting myself get too comfortable in a world that could disappear as quickly as it appeared. My debts are cleared within 3 days, just like Dominic promised, and I spend an entire evening crying over the email confirmations, over the sudden absence of that crushing weight I've carried for so long, over the fact that a man I barely know just gave me back my life with a few phone calls and wire transfers. But the real transformation isn't in my bank account or my living situation, it's in Luca, who blooms like a flower that's finally been given water and sunlight after years of drought. That first morning when I wake him up for breakfast, he stares at me like he can't quite believe I'm real, like he's afraid I'm a dream that will disappear if he blinks too hard. You came back, he whispers with such relief in his voice that it breaks my heart. Of course I came back, I tell him. I promised I would, and I always keep my promises. His smile is like the sun coming out, and he throws his arms around my waist, hugging me with that fierce, desperate strength that children have when they've been starved for affection too long. Within days, we establish routines that give his chaotic world structure and stability. Breakfast together at the same time every morning, where we talk about his dreams and what he wants to do that day. Learning games where I teach him letters and numbers and colors through play rather than pressure. Outdoor time in the massive gardens where he runs and climbs and explores, under the watchful eyes of security guards who've been instructed to let him be a normal kid within the safe perimeter. He draws constantly now, and every picture features me, Miss Maya holding his hand, Miss Maya reading to him, Miss Maya pushing him on the swing set that Dominic had installed within 48 hours of my first request. The pictures go up on the refrigerator in the kitchen, and I watch the staff's reactions, the way they stop and stare at this unprecedented change, because apparently nothing personal has ever been displayed in this house before. Everything has always been pristine and perfect and cold. Luca talks non-stop during meals, chattering about everything and nothing, finally free to be loud and energetic without being told he's too much or too difficult. I'm firm with him when he needs it, setting boundaries about bedtime and cleaning up his toys and using his words instead of tantrums. But I'm loving too, praising his efforts and listening to his stories and holding him when he needs comfort. He responds to this combination like he's been waiting his whole life for someone to care enough to give him both structure and affection. And within a week, he's a different child, brighter and more confident and so much happier that even the guards comment on it. I see Marco smile at Luca during outdoor play one afternoon, actually smile, and when our eyes meet, he looks almost embarrassed, like he's been caught doing something inappropriate. The kid needed someone, he says gruffly. You're good for him. Even Victoria thaws slightly, though she watches me with suspicion that never quite goes away, like she's waiting for me to reveal some hidden agenda or fail some test she set. But she stops making cutting remarks around Luca at least, and I catch her straightening one of his drawings on the fridge one morning when she thinks no one is watching. What I notice most, though, is Dominic, who claims business keeps him away, but who I catch lingering in doorways more and more often, watching us with an expression I can't quite read. He's there in the morning when Luca and I are making pancakes together, and Luca is covered in flour and laughing, standing in the kitchen entrance with his coffee, just observing. He's there during dinner when Luca is telling me an elaborate story about the dragon he imagined in the garden, sitting at the head of the table pretending to read something on his phone, but I can see his eyes flicking to us constantly. He's there at bedtime when I'm reading Luca a story, standing in the hallway just out of sight, but not quite out of hearing range. I catch him watching us, and our eyes meet, and something passes between us that makes my breath catch. Something intense and complicated that neither of us acknowledges. Luca notices too because children notice everything even when we think they don't. Papa smiles now when you're here, he tells me one afternoon while we're coloring. He used to always look sad and scary, but now sometimes he looks happy, and I think it's because of you. I don't know what to say to that, so I just smile and redirect him back to his coloring, but the words stay with me, echoing in my mind during quiet moments. The household is transforming around us. The mansion that felt like a cold museum is slowly becoming a home, windows open now to let in fresh air and natural light. Sounds of laughter echoing through halls that were silent before, small signs of life appearing in the pristine spaces. The guards are more relaxed, the staff less rigid. Even the house itself seems to breathe easier somehow. But I also notice the jealousy in Dominic's eyes sometimes, when Luca runs to me instead of him, when Luca asks me for help instead of his father, when Luca casually mentions that he wishes I were his real mommy. Dominic wanted this, wanted someone to bond with his son, but watching it happen seems to hurt him in ways he didn't anticipate. 2 weeks in, everything changes on a night when a thunderstorm rolls through with the kind of violence that makes the whole house shake. I'm in my room reading when I hear it, a small cry from down the hall, and I'm moving before I've consciously decided to, running toward Luca's room in my pajamas. He's sitting up in bed crying and clutching Wolfgang, his face streaked with tears and his small body shaking. The nightmare was about being alone, about everyone leaving him in the dark. And I hold him and rock him and tell him he's safe, but he keeps crying and asking for Papa in between sobs. He wants you, I realize. Not me, you. I make a decision that might get me fired, or worse. I leave Luca with Marco, who's on night duty, and I march through the house to Dominic's private office where I'm explicitly not supposed to go. The door is closed, but I knock hard and don't wait for permission before opening it. Dominic is at his desk working on something, papers spread everywhere, and his sleeves rolled up, and he looks startled to see me standing there in my pajamas soaking wet from running through the storm. Your son needs you, I say before he can speak. Not me, not anyone else. You, he's having a nightmare and he's asking for his father, so you need to come now. I expect him to argue or make excuses, but he just stands immediately and follows me through the house, his face tense with something that might be fear or anticipation. When we get to Luca's room, the boy is still crying, and the moment he sees Dominic, his face crumbles. Papa! He sobs, reaching out with both arms. Dominic freezes in the doorway, and I can see him warring with himself, see all his defenses trying to go up to protect him from feeling too much. Just hold him, I say quietly from behind Dominic. Tell him he's safe, That's all he needs. Dominic moves to the bed awkwardly like he's forgotten how to be a father, sits on the edge uncertainly, and then slowly, carefully gathers Luca into his arms. The boy clings to him desperately, his small hands fisting in Dominic's shirt, and I watch Dominic's face transform from uncertain to devastated as he feels his son's need. "I thought you didn't love me," Luca whispers against his father's chest. "I thought I made you sad, and that's why you're never here." Dominic's face crumbles completely, and I see tears start to run down his cheeks, the first time I've seen him cry. The first time he's let himself be this vulnerable. "No figlio mio," he says, and his voice is breaking. You make me feel so much it scares me. I lost your mama, and I couldn't bear to lose you too, so I—" He stops and looks at me helplessly, like he doesn't know how to finish that sentence. "Tell him the truth," I mouth silently. "So I pushed you away," Dominic continues, holding Luca tighter. "Because if I didn't love you, then losing you wouldn't hurt. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. When you were born, your mama used her last strength to hold you. She looked at you and smiled, and then she looked at me and made me promise to love you enough for both of us. I broke that promise. I've been breaking it every day for 4 years, but I'm going to keep it now. I love you more than anything in this world, Luca, more than my business or this house or my own life. I love you so much it terrifies me." Luca is crying, but softer now, clinging to his father like he's afraid to let go, and Dominic just holds him and rocks him gently and lets his own tears fall silently. I watch from the doorway with tears streaming down my own face, because this is what I wanted, this breakthrough, this healing, but witnessing it is almost unbearably beautiful and painful at once. The storm outside is still raging, thunder shaking the windows and rain pounding against the glass, but inside this room lit only by a nightlight shaped like stars, everything is warm and tender and right. Luca falls asleep eventually, still clutched tight in his father's arms, his breathing evening out and his grip loosening slightly. But Dominic doesn't move. He just sits there holding his son for over an hour, tears drying on his face, staring down at Luca like he's seeing him clearly for the first time. I should leave and give them privacy, but I can't seem to make myself move. And besides, Dominic knows I'm here. He glances at me occasionally with an expression of such gratitude and pain mixed together that it makes my chest ache. When he finally stands, carefully laying Luca back in bed and tucking him in with Wolfgang, he moves toward me and we step out into the hallway together. He closes the door softly behind us, and then we're standing in the dark hallway, lit only by moonlight streaming through the tall windows at the end, standing too close with the air between us crackling with something neither of us can name. "Thank you," Dominic says simply. "You gave me back my son. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever." "I didn't do anything," I say. "You did this, you showed up and you were honest and you loved him, that's all it took." He looks at me with those intense gray eyes and I can feel my heart pounding in my chest, can feel the pull between us like gravity. "This is dangerous," he murmurs. "What you're making me feel, what you've done to my life in 2 weeks, it's dangerous, Maya." "I'm just the nanny," I whisper, not believing the words even as I say them. "No," Dominic says, stepping even closer, until I can feel the heat of his body. "You stopped being just anything the moment you challenged me in my own home, the moment you saw my son and chose to care about him, the moment you walked into my office and demanded I be a better father. You're dangerous, Maya Carson. You make me want things I can't have. A normal life, a family, peace." I think he's going to kiss me. I can see it in his eyes and I want him to, even though I know it's wrong and complicated and will make everything infinitely more difficult. We're leaning toward each other unconsciously, the space between us shrinking, and I can almost feel his lips on mine. But then he stops, pulls back, steps away with visible effort. "You should rest," he says, and his voice is rough. "Thank you again for tonight. For everything." Then he's walking away down the hallway, and I'm left standing there trembling and confused, and knowing with absolute certainty that something has shifted irrevocably between us. I wasn't supposed to fall for both of them, I think, as I make my way back to my room through the now quiet house. The boy who needs me and the man who terrifies me. I wasn't supposed to develop feelings that go way beyond professional. I wasn't supposed to start imagining a future here that's more than just a job. But it's too late now. The feelings are there whether I want them or not, and as I lie in bed listening to the storm fade, I wonder what happens next, how we navigate this new complicated reality we've created. Victoria is in the kitchen the next morning when I come down for breakfast, and she's watching me with those hawk eyes, studying me like she knows something has changed even if she doesn't know exactly what. "You're getting very close to them," she says. And it's not quite a question and not quite an accusation, but something in between. "Luca needed structure and attention," I say carefully. "That's what I was hired to provide." She nods slowly, but I can see the suspicion in her eyes, the calculation, and I know she's watching me now more carefully than before. "Be careful, Miss Carson," she says as I'm leaving with supplies for breakfast. Mr. Rossi's world is dangerous for everyone in it, but especially for those who get too close to his heart. It's a warning and a threat wrapped together, and I carry it with me through the day wondering what exactly she knows and what she's planning. But when Luca runs to me laughing about something he saw in the garden, when Dominic appears for breakfast and actually sits with us and smiles at his son's chatter, when I catch Dominic looking at me across the table with heat in his eyes, I realize I don't care about the danger anymore, because this, whatever this is becoming, feels worth the risk. 3 weeks into my new life at the Rossi mansion, everything explodes in a way I never could have anticipated. Starting with Victoria cornering me in one of those cold marble hallways that still make me feel like I'm walking through a museum instead of a home. I'm carrying a basket of Luca's laundry when she steps out from a doorway blocking my path, and there's something in her expression that makes my stomach drop even before she speaks. "We need to talk, Miss Carson," she says, and her voice has that sharp edge I remember from my first night here. "I've been doing some research into your background, standard procedure for anyone working closely with the family, and I've discovered some very interesting information about your late sister." My hands tighten on the laundry basket, because I don't like where this is going, don't like the calculating look in her eyes. "Emma Carson," she continues, "died owing a significant amount of money to certain people, people connected to the Castellano family, who happen to be Mr. Rossi's primary rivals in this city. The medical debts you've been drowning in, some of those bills were paid initially by a Castellano front company before they came after you for repayment." I stare at her, feeling like the floor has dropped out from under me, because I didn't know that. Didn't connect those dots. The debt collectors never mention names, just account numbers and legal threats. "You expect me to believe it's just coincidence that you took this job," Victoria says, and her voice is cold. "That you just happened to show up here and charm your way into Mr. Rossi's life and his son's heart right when the Castellanos are making moves against his territory. You're either a spy or a fool, and I haven't decided which yet." "I'm not a spy," I say, and my voice is shaking with anger and shock. "I didn't know about any connection to the Castellanos. I took this job because I needed money, and because Luca needed someone, and that's the truth whether you believe it or not." She studies me for a long moment. "For your sake, I hope that's true, Miss Carson," she says finally, "because if Mr. Rossi discovers you've betrayed him in any way, there won't be anywhere in this world you can hide." Then she's walking away, leaving me standing there with a basket of tiny shirts, and the sick feeling that my past has just caught up with me in the worst possible way. I don't have time to fully process Victoria's accusation, because an hour later, I'm in the garden with Luca watching him play on the swing set, when everything goes wrong so fast I barely have time to react. There are always guards around the perimeter, always eyes watching, but somehow 3 men in dark clothes make it past the outer security, and suddenly they're running toward us across the lawn. Marco sees them first, and he's shouting into his radio and pulling his weapon, but they're so close already, and one of them is reaching for Luca, who's oblivious on the swing, laughing about how high he can go. I don't think I just move, throwing myself between Luca and the man reaching for him, and I feel hands grab my arms, rough and bruising, but I'm screaming and fighting, and Marco is there suddenly with two other guards, and there's a brief, violent struggle that I don't fully see because I've wrapped myself around Luca, who's crying and terrified. The men are subdued quickly, forced to the ground with weapons pointed at their heads, and Marco is checking on us with urgent hands. "Are you hurt? Did they touch the boy?" And I'm shaking so hard I can barely answer, but Luca seems physically fine, just scared. The men are dragged away, and I hear one of them laughing, saying something in Italian that makes Marco's face go dark with rage. And then we're being rushed inside to safety, with guards surrounding us on all sides. Dominic arrives within minutes, and I've never seen him look like this, white-faced and shaking with a rage so intense it's almost tangible. He goes to Luca first, checking him over with frantic hands, and I watch the boy cling to his father, crying that he was scared and the bad men tried to take him. Dominic holds him tight and whispers reassurances in Italian, but his eyes, when they meet mine over Luca's head, are filled with something that looks like terror, mixed with fury. That night, after Luca is finally asleep with extra guards posted outside his room, Dominic summons me to his office, and I go with dread pooling in my stomach, because I know what's coming. He's standing behind his desk when I enter, and he looks like he's aged years in the span of hours, his face drawn and exhausted. "Sit," he says, but I remain standing because if he's going to fire me, or worse, I want to face it on my feet. "The Castellanos orchestrated that attempt," he says without preamble. "They know about you, about how close you've gotten to Luca, about how he's attached to you. They see you as leverage, Maya, a way to hurt me by threatening someone He stops and runs a hand through his hair. "Someone in my household. He won't say care about, won't admit that I've become more than just an employee, but I can hear it in his voice anyway. This is my fault," he continues, and his voice is raw. "I brought you into this world. I made you a target, and today you could have been killed or taken, and it would have been because of me. I need you to leave Maya tonight. I'll pay you a year's salary and clear any remaining debts and set you up somewhere safe far from here, but you have to go." I stare at him, feeling anger rise up to override my fear. "No," I say simply. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to push away everyone who loves your son the moment things get difficult. That's what broke him in the first place, Dominic. That's why he was so lonely and desperate when I got here." Dominic's hands slam down on his desk, and the sound makes me flinch, but I don't back down. "Don't you understand?" he shouts, and there's desperation in his voice now. "They'll kill you to hurt me. They'll use you to get to Luca. They'll do things I can't even say out loud, and it will be my fault because I was selfish enough to keep you here when I knew it was dangerous. I can't." His voice breaks. "I can't lose someone else I care about, Maya. I can't bury another person. He stops, breathing hard. The admission hangs in the air between us, heavy and significant. "You care about me," I whisper, and it's not quite a question. Dominic looks at me, and all his defenses are down. All his carefully maintained control is shattered, and what I see in his eyes makes my breath catch. "Damn it, Maya, yes," he says, and his voice is anguished. "More than I should, more than is safe, more than makes any logical sense. You've been here less than a month, and you've turned my entire world upside down. You've given my son back to me. You've made this house feel like a home for the first time since Isabella died. Luca needs you and I." He stops and steps out from behind his desk, moving closer. "I need you," he says quietly. "That's the problem. That's what terrifies me, because everyone I need ends up hurt or dead or destroyed by my world." "Then protect me," I say, meeting his eyes. "Teach me how to exist in your world instead of sending me away. Give me security and training and whatever I need to be safe here. Because I'm not leaving Luca. I won't abandon him after promising I'd stay, and I take a breath, gathering courage. I'm not leaving you either, Dominic. He's close enough now that I can feel the heat of his body, close enough that I can see the war happening behind his eyes. My world will try to destroy you, he says. Then we'll make sure it doesn't, I say firmly. We'll be smarter and more careful and more protected, but we'll do it together because love isn't safe, Dominic. It never has been. But it's worth fighting for. The word love hangs between us, and I see the moment he stops fighting himself, stops trying to maintain distance, stops pretending he doesn't feel what we both know he feels. He closes the remaining space between us and kisses me, and it's desperate and tender all at once, months of tension and denial finally breaking. His hands cup my face like I'm something precious and breakable, my hands fist in his shirt pulling him closer, and for a moment the danger and complications and fear all fade away, leaving just this. Just us. Just the truth of what we've become to each other. When we finally part, we're both breathing hard, and his forehead rests against mine. I haven't felt alive since Isabella died, he whispers. I've been going through the motions, running my business, existing but not living. You make me feel alive again, Maya, terrified but alive, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to let you go, even though I should. Then don't, I say. Let me stay. Let me be part of this family. Let me help you keep Luca safe and happy and loved. His kiss this time is softer, slower, full of promise and possibility, and the beginning of something neither of us can name yet, but both of us want desperately. The next 3 weeks are a blur of change and adjustment as I learn to exist in Dominic's world more fully. Marco teaches me basic self-defense. I learn the security protocols. I'm assigned my own guard when I leave the property with Luca. Victoria watches all of this with narrowed eyes, but she's been moved to less direct oversight of Luca after Dominic learns what she's been saying to his son, and there's a new housekeeper who's kind and warm and actually likes children. The Castellanos make no more moves against us. Apparently, Dominic's retaliation for the attempted kidnapping was swift and brutal enough to make them reconsider. But the danger is always there, hovering at the edges of our new fragile happiness. Dominic and I don't hide our relationship from the household, though we're careful around Luca, not wanting to confuse him or move too fast. But Luca notices anyway, because children always do. Notices his father holding my hand at breakfast. Notices the way Dominic looks at me when he thinks no one is watching. Notices that I'm sleeping in the guest room now, instead of the staff wing. I wish you were my real mommy, he tells me one afternoon while we're drawing. Papa smiles now when you're here, and he laughs sometimes, and he plays with me after dinner. Maybe someday, I say carefully, not wanting to promise something I can't deliver. Would you like that? His smile is answer enough. 3 weeks after the attempted kidnapping, we celebrate Luca's 5th birthday in the garden on a warm afternoon with sunshine streaming down and the smell of flowers in the air. It's a small party, just us and the guards who've become like family, and a few of Dominic's most trusted friends with their children. And Luca is wearing a paper crown he made himself and is so excited he can barely sit still. The cake is elaborate, covered in fondant rockets and stars, because he's obsessed with space lately. And when it's time to blow out the candles, we all gather around singing, while Luca's face glows with happiness. Make a wish, Dominic says, and his hand finds mine under the table, squeezing gently. Luca closes his eyes tight, scrunching up his whole face with the effort of wishing properly, and then blows out all 5 candles in one breath. Everyone cheers, and he's grinning so wide it looks like his face might split. What did you wish for? I ask. I'm not supposed to tell, he says seriously. Or it won't come true. Come on, Dominic says. You can tell us. Luca looks between us and then announces proudly, I wished that Miss Maya stays forever and becomes my real mommy, and that Papa keeps smiling like he does now. Then he leans in conspiratorially. And I wished for a baby sister, but Miss Maya said we have to take things slow, so maybe that one will take longer. The adults around the table laugh at his innocent addition, and I feel my face heat while Dominic's hand tightens on mine. We exchange looks over Luca's head, complicated and scared, but also hopeful, and I see in his eyes that he wants this too, wants the forever that his son just wished for, even though we both know it won't be easy or simple or safe. Forever is a long time, Dominic murmurs, so only I can hear. Good thing I don't scare easy, I reply. As Luca tears into his presence with the enthusiasm only a 5-year-old can muster, laughing and exclaiming over each gift, Dominic pulls me close and kisses my temple. You saved him, he says quietly. You saved both of us, Maya. You took 2 broken people and somehow made us whole again. We saved each other, I say. That's how this works. Through the window, I can see guards patrolling the perimeter, a reminder that danger is always present, that Dominic's world comes with threats and violence and complications that will never fully go away. But inside, in this moment, we're just a family, celebrating a little boy who finally has everything he wished for, a father who's present and loving and healed, a mother figure who chose to stay despite the danger because love is always worth the risk. That night, after the party is over, and the guests have gone home, and Luca is exhausted from excitement, we end up on the couch in the living room where this all started. Luca falls asleep between us, still wearing his paper crown, his small body curled against Dominic with his feet in my lap and Wolfgang clutched to his chest. Golden hour light streams through the windows, bathing everything in warm amber, and the house is quiet and peaceful in a way it never was before I arrived. Dominic looks at his son with wonder in his eyes, the distance and pain that used to be there finally gone, replaced by simple, uncomplicated love. He reaches across Luca's sleeping form and takes my hand, threading our fingers together. I love you, he says quietly. I should probably wait longer to say that, probably should be more careful and measured, but I'm done pretending I don't feel what I feel. You walked into my house to clean for one night, and instead you stayed and changed everything, and I'm not fool enough to let you go. I love you too, I whisper back. Both of you, this family we're building, this imperfect, dangerous, beautiful life we're creating together. We sit there as the sun sets, the 3 of us tangled together on the couch, safe in our imperfect, dangerous, love-filled world. And I think about that first night when I was terrified and desperate and alone. I came here for money, for one night of work to ease my crushing debt. But I stayed for love, for a lonely little boy who needed someone to care and for a broken man who needed someone to see past his walls. I lost Emma and Jacob and thought my capacity for family died with them. But here I am building a new family from broken pieces, choosing love over safety, choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. Outside, the guards patrol and the world continues in all its danger and complexity, but inside we're just us, just a father and son who found each other again, and the woman who helped them heal, just 3 people who needed each other and were brave enough to admit it. Luca sighs in his sleep and snuggles closer to both of us. His small, warm body, the bridge that brought us together. And I know with absolute certainty that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I came for one night, but I'm staying forever, bound by a child's need and a man's unexpected love, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.